Welcome. Join us as we take a trip up Spain's east coast, up the Mediterranean, visiting Cartagena, Tarragona, and the city of Roses, but making a trip inland to the Dali Museum. We started in Cartagena with a quick roundabout of the city on the bus, and then stopped in front of the waterfront and started to take the tour on foot. Cartagena has a very rich history going all the way back to the Carthaginians in 227 BC. Then it came under Roman control and became, and is to this day, an important naval hub. We'll take a visit to the Roman theater, the military fortress of Castillo de la Concepción. But here you see the fog starting to move in. We start with a walk on the Plaza de Heros de Cavita, which is essentially a monument and a plaza dedicated to the sailors that lost their lives in the Spanish-American War in 1898. The plaza also has an outdoor art exhibition, and here we see somebody who really hasn't buried their head in the sand. It seems to be sticking out. These are the city offices, which also house the Office of Tourism. We proceeded up the pedestrian-only shopping area and were fascinated once again by the pavement, which was all marble and different colors of marble, which was quite interesting. There are also many, many places to eat, but most striking was the architecture. This is a hotel on the Calle Mayor, and it is Art Nouveau, designed in 1917. We next stopped at the military church of Santo Domingo, which was originally a Dominican convent founded in the 13th century. And then in the 19th century, it was turned into a military church, highlighting the presence of the naval squadrons here. This Baroque-style church also has some interesting artwork, and it's worthwhile just to step inside and take a look. Proceeding up the Calle Mayor, we stopped in Plaza San Sebastian and just marveled at the architecture and artwork throughout the entire square. And as we were getting a little hungry, it was time to stop and have a bite in one of the outdoor cafes here on the square. Here on the square, we were also able to get one of the local specialties, which is the coffee with chocolate in it. Oh, and also you can get some ham. Once again, here's a look at the architecture in the city, which combines classical Spanish facades, balconies with pastel colors, and also the Art Nouveau that you see throughout the city. We were here in mid-April and flowers were everywhere. It was just absolutely gorgeous. So now we're off to see the two main attractions of the city. And we start by going up there on an elevator. Thank goodness we didn't have to take the spiral staircase all the way up. The other attraction, which you can see here from the ground, is the Roman amphitheater, which was discovered in 1988. This amphitheater was thought to have been built during the 1st century AD during the reign of Emperor Augustus. It had a seating capacity of about 11,000 spectators. Below us is another amphitheater, but this one's quite modern. But if you look up to the upper right, there is another Roman amphitheater right here in the city. As with many of the cities on the east coast of Spain, it is rife with Roman ruins throughout the entire city, and here's just another example. We are on top of the Castillo de Concepción, and it normally offers stunning views of the city, but you can see the fog has moved in a little bit. And there's another look at the arena, and this is a lighthouse. So as we leave the Castillo, we get some nice views of local landscapes and birds. And then we depart and head out for an overnight cruise towards Tarragona. On our way up to Tarragona and just a little south of Valencia, we were treated to one of the most beautiful sunsets I have ever seen. And this looks like it's artificial, but this is the way it really looked that night. The port of Tarragona was a little different from the ones we had seen earlier. There was a little amusement park, but there was also heavy industrial areas. And we needed a pilot to come help us get into the harbor itself, and here he is stepping directly onto the boat, and then the pilot boat takes off. We start at the walls of Tarragona, and the walls were originally constructed by the Romans, built around the end of the 3rd century, and they're the oldest Roman fortifications in Spain. These walls have undergone modifications, especially during medieval period. The city does not have the wide pedestrian-only area. It is just a series of narrow streets, but with some interesting artwork and artifacts that we encountered along the way. Next, we head up to the Tarragona Cathedral, which is an example of Gothic and Romanesque architecture, and it's located on the highest point of the city and built on the site of a Roman temple and a Moorish mosque. Here is a model of the ancient Roman city, and you can see the temple, which is where the cathedral is. Another thing that goes on here in Tarragona is the castells, human towers. This tradition dates back to the 18th century, and teams compete to build the highest and most complex tower out of people. Next, we take a walk down some narrow streets to take a look at some more of the ruins of the ancient Roman city that I showed you on the model. This is just one part of the ruins of a large chariot arena that sat below the palace, and you can see it here in the model just below the fountains. There are artifacts of the chariot track and other things all throughout this lower part of the city, including this tower. Now, as you can see from the model, there are a series of arches at the bottom, and those represent the tunnels and preparation places for where the chariot racers got ready. And those are open, and you can actually walk through them, which is just absolutely amazing. Here you see some of the arches that you saw in the model. This is actually the eastern end of the stands for the chariot arena. still preserved. It's just absolutely amazing. Heading into the tunnels, one can only imagine what went on here several millennia ago. The tunnels are quite extensive, and it's just really neat to be able to walk through them. In addition to the other structures, this is the Roman theater of Tarragona, and it was built again in the 1st century AD during the reign of Emperor Augustus. At one point, it held 13,000 spectators, but the theater fell into disuse, and in the Middle Ages, a church was built over it. It was not rediscovered until the early 20th century. As you can see, you get some really great views of the bay. Our next stop, again an overnight trip, was up to the Port of Roses. It's a beautiful little port, and we caught a time lapse of our arrival into the port. On our way in, we passed by this very unusual structure, and it almost looked like a stormtrooper helmet or something, but it was a house. Compared to Tarragona, this port is much more recreational oriented, and it has an absolutely beautiful beach. We never got into the town itself, however, since we were traveling out to another destination. So we jumped in the bus and headed off to our destination for this leg of the trip, and that's the town of Figueres, which happens to be the location of the Salvador Dali Museum and Theater. This Salvador Dali Museum is unique as it was created by Dali himself. The facade's topped with these large egg sculptures, and the walls have bread rolls in them, which are both recurring motifs in Dali's art. The museum is housed in a former theater, which was opened by Dali in 1974. This is where he had his first public art exhibition as a young artist, and is also near the church where he was baptized in the house where he was born. Dali wanted visitors to have a theatrical experience as they walk through the museum. This central courtyard was once the theater stage and now has the Rainy Taxi, which is a vintage Cadillac beneath the network of tubes that create an indoor rain shower. The rain shower is taking place only inside the Cadillac itself, and if we look up above the boat, the umbrella has unfurled. This is an interesting piece which is called Gala Contemplating the Mediterranean Sea, and then at 20 meters it becomes the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Here we have the May West room, which is an entire room which, viewed from a certain angle, the room furniture aligns to form the face of actress Mae West, and on the ceiling is the bathroom. This is the Palace of the Wind Room, which is a large mural on the ceiling that depicts Dali and Gala ascending toward heaven, barefoot. So here are some of the pieces that we saw in the museum, including a self-portrait, a portrait of Picasso, and Winston Churchill. So we say farewell to Salvador Dali and head back to the ship, and we cruise next to the port of Barcelona. If you enjoyed this video, please click to subscribe and you'll be notified of other videos that get posted in the future.